Hello, Seth. How are you?
Hello, good evening.
Very good evening. It's very good to have you today with us, and I am excited to discuss the wonderful topic about Abrahamic Accord with you.
Go ahead. Good evening, everybody.
I would like to invite you first to introduce a little about yourself, that
Okay,
people who are watching us right now, listening us right now, they can better know you, and then we will go on.
no problem. Okay, so my name is Seth Vogelman. I'm speaking to you from Ma'ale Adumim, which is just to the east of Jerusalem in Israel. I've been living in Israel for the past 36 years. I I was born in New York. I went to university in Montreal. For the past 26 years, I've worked as a trade attaché throughout the Middle East, including Pakistan. And that travel has taken me to places like Egypt, Jordan, Dubai, Oman, Sharjah, and I've traveled to other places in the region as well. I have very good friends in Dubai, in Pakistan, Morocco, Jordan. So I'm very familiar with the region. Um, right now, I'm currently in a course studying to be a tour guide for Israel, and I have very good Muslim friends. And I've also worked and employed in my company Christians and Muslims as well. So I'm pretty familiar with the different peoples that live in this part of the world.
That's very wonderful. That's very wonderful. That's good to have you and know you about and know about the activities you have been through, and right now you are doing. So, straight coming to the topic, Abrahamic Accord, the biggest, if I may say, not the biggest deal of the century, but the biggest deal of the decade at least, a breakthrough.
It is. It is. Um, we can start from we start from the macro and go little, or go from the micro and go bigger. For me
As you like.
personally,
Yeah.
it'd be great because my trips to Dubai or to the Gulf have been via Amman, and I have to switch planes and spend my time sleeping on the floor in the airport. So now that I can actually fly directly from Tel Aviv to Dubai or Abu Dhabi, Nushkar Rab. That'll be very good. But the exciting part is in a number of different ways.
Mm,
Um, let's see where we can begin. Well, the peace with the interesting thing, first of all, is that this is the first peace accords with Muslim countries that are not bordering on the state of Israel.
mm,
You know, historically, Israel had a peace treaty first with Egypt in 1979. We had a peace accord with Jordan in 1994, and that greatly affected just general life. You know, I could get in my car and drive up to the border and go in to visit Jordan without a problem, or fly
mm.
to Egypt and not worry about anything. Um, in fact, my first visit to Israel, I actually came from Egypt by bus. That was before the peace treaty, um, but the talks were going on. Actually, it was after the peace treaty. I was able to come, but I was as an American. But now it's very exciting in two ways. There's tourism and interpersonal connections. There's also technology as well.
Mm,
So
mm,
Israel, for example, is very much a powerhouse in the
mm,
world of medicine.
mm,
Just 2 months ago, the first successful implant of an artificial cornea was done for an Arab Israeli man, and for the first time in his life, he could see his family.
mm.
So, wouldn't it be great that if we could take this technology, and it doesn't matter where it comes from, and help people see in Dubai, in Morocco, in inshallah to Pakistan.
Inshallah.
Um, we have also great strides in the area of agriculture. It's
Mm,
no secret that it's no secret that Israeli agricultural technology has helped to make the desert bloom.
mm,
Um, it's well known that Saudi Arabia has bought a lot of that stuff way before anyone is speaking about official peace agreement. But Israeli technology has helped many farmers in the Arab world, in the Muslim world, to raise better crops. The world expert in parasites against date trees comes from Israel. Because he had a French passport, he went to Abu Dhabi and helped them combat the same problem that we had here. So now that you have to do it secretly, you don't need a foreign passport, but that Israelis can travel freely to the UAE. Israelis can travel freely to Sudan. All right, that will benefit everyone, because Israel is very, very interested, very, very active already in helping other countries to improve their situation. If it's in health, if it's agriculture, and of course high tech. That's very clear.
Yes.
There are a number of companies today. We're all suffering from COVID, and as we all know, since we're stuck at home, all the various technologies for ordering from your house and buying your groceries from your house and ordering food from your house. Well, so there's a lot of technology going back and forth. And Israel has done a lot in that area. So now there's room for cooperation. Straight business. Doesn't matter where you're from, how you believe. Just now we don't have a political thing to prevent us from working together. And that I think is the key. The key benefit to the Abrahamic Accords is that now countries that shouldn't have an issue with Israel now don't have an issue. I think one of the best examples that I can give to you is Morocco. I was in Morocco in November, a year ago, not this past past November, and the people spoke to me in Hebrew. I speak French, I speak Arabic. They understand my Arabic, but we can't understand the Arabic, as you know, from Morocco. But everybody was happy. Everybody was happy, and they were anxious. And unfortunately, though, we had to fly via Paris. Now we can take the direct flight. Moroccans can come here. We can visit Morocco. And there are many, many Jewish people living here in Israel from Morocco who have very fond memories of where they used to live and want to be in touch with people before. So here we have different religions, but the friendships remain. And I think that's one of the great things that the Accords brought to us.
That's right. Today is, we used to call it, we still call it Shab-e Miraj, the travel of prophet from earth to heavens and skies, and that started from Jerusalem. Today's Jerusalem.
Yes.
And
yesterday was right.
Yeah. So it was a very important event for us all Muslims, and I can imagine if the normalization is there. Only today you will have lots and lots of Muslim tourists only to mark that particular night there and celebrate it, and they will worship there, they will pray there. So this is a way of hope. The normalization and the peace treaty is a way of hope. What is the future of peace treaty after new administration in USA? Because we know that past administration, they pushed it with they pushed it wholeheartedly, and now the administrations change, policies are changed. So how you see the American impact on the process of normalization now?
Well, we have the first of all the whole thing. Where to start? Okay, so look, we had, for example, when President Sadat from Egypt contacted Israel. Okay, he recognized that the Prime Minister of Israel prevented an assassination attempt against President Sadat. And usually they would tell them by the Americans wouldn't tell the Egyptians who it came from. So, the Americans saved me. And when the new Prime Minister, Begin, in 1977 came to power, he said, no, tell them directly. Tell the Romanians to tell them. And So the Americans didn't have to play a role. They did afterwards, but directly, the children of Abraham were able to speak directly. There was always a quiet peace with the Jordanians. Okay, it was King Abdullah or King Hussein. It's well known that because of pressure from outside forces that he was involved in the other two wars. And when, for the reasons that, the economic reasons, they signed the peace treaty in 1994, King Hussein was the man who said to his people, today's a new day. President Sadat came to the Knesset, the Parliament of Israel, and he said, no more war, no more bloodshed. He didn't say, first do this for me. He didn't come with a bill and say, do all these things, and then we'll have peace. No. He said, peace is what we have, now let's make it work.
Yeah.
So for the role of the United States is helpful, but it's not the point, not the main thing. And one of the things we saw, in fact, was when, unfortunately, shortly before King Hussein died, a Jordanian soldier killed through the border fence a number of Israeli girls who were visiting a site. And King Hussein himself came to Israel and visited the families of the girls who were killed. And the whole country in Israel was watching live on TV when King Hussein sat on the floor with the mourning parents. He said, this is a new day. Americans weren't involved. So what you need is okay, yes, the American administration pushed the Emirati and Sudan and the Moroccans, right, to formalize the situation. Okay, and the fact at Bahrain. Okay, so for that we are grateful. But the real test will now be, what do we see from the people themselves? What do we see from the leadership themselves? Because the Americans can come and tell the people to do anything. But it's, will the people listen? And what's the situation in the country? Okay, when I travel to Morocco, and the Amazigh, the Berber, the Amazigh people say, we want to come and visit. We want you to come and visit. They're not afraid to be friends with me on Facebook. All right? Here, Muslims, Sunni Muslims, right? But no one had to tell them what to do. So now we have formalized connection. So great. That's great. But the real difference will be, when King Mohammed VI comes on a visit and he's able to show his people that, yes, this is a good thing. That's the difference.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I don't think that, Sheikh Maktoum is going to show up tomorrow because we have COVID. But as long as the leadership shows a good example to the people, then people say, oh, maybe the situation has changed.
Yeah.
If you are, let's just say there are other leaders who have a lot of opportunity, but don't move ahead, well, then the people are confused. Right? So that's how I view it in general. Right? That you have the support.
Sid, let me ask you, what do you think about the future countries who will join the accord?
Do you mean like Saudi
Indonesia
Arabia or
Saudi Arabia, Indonesia?
Okay. Well, all right. So there's two. We have two issues here. Okay. Today, you can go into Jerusalem and you will meet tourists from Indonesia. You will meet tourists from Malaysia. Okay. Today. All right. Maybe not because of Corona, but before Corona and after.
Yeah.
I've met them. Okay. I am working with a company, and they just established an Israeli company, established a commercial agent in Malaysia just this week. So we also know, and we're not innocent, that there are other considerations. Okay, you have a situation where there are people in the region who look to make trouble. There are people in the region who don't want peace for whatever reason. Okay,
right.
I don't know, I can go into a lot of detail, but you
Yeah.
let me know. But the situation that exists today with Saudi Arabia, we understand that there are other elements in the country that would not be for it, and that MBS needs to work slowly.
Hmm.
But we remember, unfortunately, it was now 41 years ago, right? Juhayman, right? The Saudi Arabia itself is just moving ahead too fast, right? And they broke the pictures, and then he takes the masjid, right? And there's
Hmm.
terrible things. So we know that in the background there are people in Saudi who will be not happy, even though you and I, and hopefully our
Hmm.
listeners know that there are benefits to have peace that doesn't
Yeah.
involve politics, doesn't involve religion.
Yeah.
So I think that pushing certain countries like Saudi Arabia, we can wait.
Hmm.
I don't know if you're familiar with the expression "il ajla min shaitan."
Hmm.
To rush is from the devil. Bas aman min rahman. Patience is from God.
Yeah.
So everybody in Israel says shwaya shwaya, right? Take your time. So we have events that are incredible.
Hmm.
A few years ago, you couldn't have imagined that direct flights, Tel Aviv, Dubai, Tel Aviv, Abu Dhabi.
Hmm.
So if we have the miraculous happen so quickly, then okay. If you and I have this conversation in 20 years, same
Hmm.
conversation, we have a problem.
Hmm. Hmm.
But
Hmm. That's right.
but right. But I think that there are countries that think that the fact that Saudi Arabia, there's a debate, okay, but let's say that because MBS allowed the Emirates to make connections with Israel,
Hmm.
that gave a message to everybody else,
Hmm.
okay. We know that in Sudan, that Sudan had goals. They
Hmm.
want to not be listed as terror. They wanted to show the country needs help. They wanted
Yeah.
to rejoin the family of nations.
Hmm.
So, okay. In Morocco, they had the issue with the Sahara.
Hmm.
We recognize as part of Morocco. So, as you know, we live here in the Middle East. You have negotiations. You want
Yeah.
something? What can I? You want something? Well, what can you give me?
Hmm.
So the president of the United States was smart. He said, okay, we'll recognize tomorrow, but you have to
Hmm.
say okay today to Israel.
Hmm.
So I think that would not have taken place if um, the Prince bin Salman hadn't said in some way or another that this is okay.
Hmm.
That he would not have spoken and said, "Go ahead, move ahead with this relationship." Because we remember that in 1977, when President Sadat came, Egypt was boycotted by everybody.
That's right.
And the
So
boycott that Egypt suffered then is now the Egyptians are trying to catch up. I don't know if
yeah.
you're aware. Are you aware of the situation today? That just recently the Egyptians came. There was a big visit from the Egyptians to Israel and vice versa.
Hmm.
Um,
And today there was a news in Jerusalem Post that they have started teaching in the schools about Judaism, which is a very in Egypt. So it's a big development.
yes, for sure. And also Morocco, and
Yeah.
now it's part of the curriculum.
Yeah.
Okay, I can tell you personally that every Jewish Israeli school child learns about Islam.
Hmm.
Okay, everybody studies Arabic
Hmm.
in class, and I'm sure that, and as a non-Jewish citizen of Israel, they learn about Judaism.
Hmm.
All right, either in school and also outside. Because the holiday comes, we have our New Year, we have our Day of Atonement. The Ashura comes from a Jewish tradition.
Hmm.
So we're coming now the Jewish holiday of Passover.
Yeah.
So non-Jews know that we eat unleavened bread, for example,
Hmm.
the matzah. But the fact that there's also a push on the Jewish side that the Jewish children learn about the non-Jews who live in the country is very important.
That's right.
Also, every Jewish child in school, pre-university, learns Arabic.
Hmm.
There's a very big debate now because they learn al-Fusha, not Amamiya. I don't know, right? Okay. So they learn Fusha, so they can read the Quran, but they can't talk to their neighbor.
Hmm.
So there's more of a push now to say, look, let's leave the reading behind and have the conversation. Because when people talk, then you make the connection.
Yeah.
And there's a big push right now among in the school system to go to the more spoken Arabic. Of course, you know that in Israel there are 3 or 4 different kinds of Arabic to begin with, so that'll be interesting to see what happens. But
right.
but I think that to go back to your original point about peace, there is a very, very strong push among the Israeli public, religious, not religious, left or right, to make a better connection with our fellow non-Jewish citizens, mostly Muslim. And the desire to do that, has always been there. But when things happen, say if there's terrorism or there's bad press or things going on, then people are afraid. And recently, I would say in the past 5 to 10 years, the fact that many more Arab Israeli citizens are involved in the economy, not just staying in the village. They're working in high tech. They're working in, coming to live in Tel Aviv, for example, as opposed to staying in the villages. Then all of a sudden you have exposure. So now the senior person in the high tech company is named Mohammed and not named Shlomo. And that changes the whole approach for people.
Yeah.
So that's the key to peace, a real peace between peoples, starting here at home.
I agree. I completely agree with you. And how you see the relations between, there are not formal relations between Israel and Pakistan, but there are some informal ties and bonds between Israel and Pakistan during the Cold War, during the war against terrorism. And as you are dealing business with the people of this region, and you are you have seen the situation closely on the ground. You have contacts all over in the region, and especially in Pakistan, India, and in other countries. How do you look forward to relations between Israel and Pakistan?
Okay, so
what are the let me add 2 words more. What are the potential and what are the possibilities?
What's the potential and what's the possibilities? Okay. I have to think a little bit.
Sure.
Look, like I said, a hungry child anywhere is against the will of God. And it doesn't matter if you are a Muslim, if you're a Christian, if you're a Jew.
Yeah.
Children who are hungry and not well fed and don't have a place to live is bad. And Israel has already demonstrated its willingness to assist other countries with that problem. Okay, there's a few Israeli companies, in fact, that gave away products for free in Africa to stop the spread of AIDS and things like that, or to work with people in terms of curbing disease. So that's something that that even today we could talk about. There are a lot of potential, but the problem is that people don't say, "Okay, we have a difference." If you look at us as 2 countries at war, that's one thing. But if you say we're having a family dispute, well, we know that we argue with our family members and then we make up. So as Muslims and Jews, we've had our differences in the past, but it doesn't mean forever. Okay, just like now Israel and Germany have good relations, it wasn't always that case. if your listeners are familiar with the Holocaust, Germany was the worst thing to mention, or the situation in between Israel and the Jewish people in Russia. Okay, not very good. But today, Germany and Russia are friends of Israel. So, in terms of just between people, that's why I was so glad that you gave me the opportunity to speak to your listenership, because it's a way of opening a door. We open a door and we speak, then it can hopefully lead to a positive place. And if you agree that, yes, there are points that you and I will disagree on, okay? We're not talking about when the fast ends at the, in Ramadan, when the iftar, but, other disagreements. But that we are speaking, the dialogue then feeds into a relationship.
Yeah.
And just like any relationship has its ups and downs, so I would see that there. Unfortunately, okay, we have in both countries people who don't realize or don't want to recognize the fact that not fighting is a good thing. Okay, I didn't say peace. So just stopping the state of war, stopping the state of dispute.
Yeah.
That's the first step. There was a very famous rabbi here in Israel who passed away a few years ago, called Rabbi Froman. Are you familiar with him?
I have heard his name.
Okay, so he would study with Sufis. His Arabic was excellent, and they would learn together. Okay, and during the time of great tension between Palestinians and Israelis, and he would sit and learn with these people together. And I don't know if he went to the madrasa or they came to his house because it was dangerous. But they were saying, but they said, look, if we're sitting and learning together, because the idea of how can we as individuals get closer to God, each in our own way, that's a positive thing. That's a place where we can agree. Once you find one place where you can agree, then it can move ahead. Right?
That's true.
And so instead of counting all the places where we disagree, let's look at the places where we can agree.
Yeah.
So in terms of the future, so in Pakistan specifically, I have to think about that a little bit because of the, it's an interesting idea. Like I mentioned, we have cricket teams here, so maybe we have a sports exchange first. But it's the idea that because I'm not fighting with your enemy doesn't mean I'm your enemy. You have to get that idea first of all in, and the idea that we can still disagree on certain points, but let's concentrate. Where can we concentrate on the positive?
Yeah. Okay.
So look, the peace treaty with Egypt is signed in 1979. And Israel finishes pulling out of the Sinai Desert in 1982, and then there was a border dispute about some small amount of land that lasted for a couple of years afterwards. But there wasn't war, where 100 years before there definitely would have been war over a small piece of land. The peace treaty based on an agreement between the British and the Turks from 1907, they solved the dispute. The peace treaty with Jordan is signed in 1994, but only in 2000 or so were they able to finish the border demarcation. But the King Hussein, didn't let that derail the process. So, for example, we have heard now. I don't know if you're aware. We have heard now voices from Lebanon saying that we should come to some kind of an arrangement. There are many people, the Iranian influenced people especially, that are not for this. But the common Lebanese person, I developed some friendships with Lebanese people for my trips to Dubai. And one of the saddest moments I ever had was when my friend from Beirut said, "I can't take your present." I had a little picture of the Dome of the Rock, and it said, just in Arabic and English, "Salam" is peace. Didn't even have Hebrew. He said, "No, I can't take that because someone might come to my office and say, 'Where did you get that from?' And they make trouble for him." So the fact that there's a will is the first step, and that someone's willing to express that in public,
Yeah.
that's the next step.
Yeah.
Because once that gives you an indication, then, like we mentioned earlier, that in 2005, was it? That the Pakistani Prime Minister Foreign Minister met with the Israeli Foreign Minister.
Yeah.
Right in New. Just as they met, a few years later, a retired Saudi general met with the Israelis at the UN. So they very, very intelligently picked a person that they could say, no, it wasn't official, but we have a contact. And once the dialogue begins, then we have to see where things will lead. Okay, what's your problem? What's going on? What issues do we have to deal with? Okay, so I think that's something to keep in mind, is that how do we start the dialogue? And sometimes things could come fast. There could be internal issues.
And we have to learn that how to agree to disagree.
Exactly. So that's how I view it, and I'm not alone. It's funny. A Pakistani friend said to me they want to sell basmati rice to Israel. And I said, oh, great. I have people who would love that. But then I said to them, but how are you going to ship it? Right? Because right now there's no direct route between Karachi and Eilat.
Yeah.
So, and to ship it via some other place is too much money. So the idea that we could do something together is there, but a few obstacles.
Yeah.
Inshallah, we'll be eating Pakistani basmati rice sooner than later.
You will. And we will be enjoying the high-tech and agricultural technologies from Israel very soon. And we need it. Everyone needs it. Now we are living in a tech world. It's a global tech world. And everyone needs technology. Everyone needs improvement in health care. Everyone needs the agricultural technology. And if Israel is leading in these fields, we all need it from Israel. One day, if the Brazil will lead it, we all will follow Brazil for that. And one day, if the Pakistan will lead it, everyone will need it from Pakistan. So yes, now we are living in a global village, and this is not possible that I cannot recognize the person who is living next door to me or in the end of my street. I don't recognize that he is having a home or he is living next to me. This is not workable anymore in the world.
So you mentioned about the Abrahamic Accords. Yeah. So that's again the what will make the difference is if it's a live peace or if it's a cold peace. When President Sadat was killed and Mubarak came to power, things got very quiet between Israel and Egypt. Friends of mine were waiting, trying to get a visa, and they couldn't get a visa from Egypt to visit. The message that came from King Abdullah after his father passed away was different than what his father said to the people. So even though there are brave individuals that are willing to move ahead, this conversation, for example, as small steps, there still needs to be leadership from above. Because Israel has demonstrated what it is willing to do to achieve peace. If it's territorial, if it's economic. One of the things we're talking about now is, Jordan does not want to complete the train line. Haifa port is the closest port to Jordan. And today you can take the train almost to Jordan, then you have to put stuff on a truck, drive the truck over the border, and then they switch the trucks. When they make that train line open, the Jordanian people will benefit. So and Israel is waiting for that. I have seen anyone who wants to come, I can take them to the depot where we see all the containers waiting to go to Jordan and vice versa. But if we could, open that up, and there will always be security concerns.
mm,
Unfortunately, there will
mm,
always be security concerns. But
mm,
if we can facilitate the
mm,
connections between the people, all right. So, for example, like I said, Egypt, there was a cold peace, and now President Sisi is now trying to get closer to Israel
mm,
because the fact that the Saudis said okay, that we have the connection now with the UAE, and we have the
mm,
connection now with Sudan,
mm,
and there are people who are trying to make trouble.
mm,
And now Israel and Egypt and Cyprus and Greece are working together to develop the offshore resources.
mm,
That wouldn't be happening if the president of the Sisi didn't see it as a problem.
mm,
He says, "Oh, look, Israel, Egypt, Saudi, UAE are standing together because we have other things to be worried about in the region,
mm,
right? And then we have another threat from another place. We can stand together."
mm.
And that's also, it's not the best reason to be friends, but it's a good start, right?
That's true. That's true. And there is a
I
terrorist
see your I
fly
see the
in
fly.
my yeah. There is a terrorist fly which is interrupting in the conversation. So this is very true that everyone needs peace now, and everyone wants to move towards peace now. And peace is the door of opportunities for the new generations. And trust me, we Pakistanis have gone through a hell of terrorism in last 2 decades and have lost thousands and thousands of lives and lost mm, hundred of billions dollars for last 10 years in the war of terrorism, and
Hmm.
now we are not ready to lose anything more, and we are just trying to reset the pace of development, the pace of towards a bright future, not only for us but for the kids of our nation.
Yes,
So I am hopeful and I am optimist that one day we will have peace with everyone on earth.
inshallah.
Inshallah.
That, that's for sure. Look, as I told you, I'm studying in a tour guide course, and there's Israeli Arabs and there are Palestinian Arabs also with me in the course.
Hmm.
And just yesterday, um, someone who I wasn't quite sure where he stood and things, they started having a discussion about peace and how can we ensure good relations. And unfortunately, we have a lot of Jewish Israelis who are not so happy about God. Okay, and they say, "Oh, it's because of religion that we have disputes." So I didn't want to get into the argument with them because it's sometimes you know when to argue and you know when to keep your mouth shut. But with my friend Mahmoud, I wanted to pull him aside and continue. He and I have had this discussion more than once. Is that um, when we discuss all these different places because of religion that we can come together, and it's not because of our belief in God, even though we worship in different ways, that we are divided, but in fact that we are united. That makes the big difference. And one of the things I have found in my travels throughout the Middle East is, especially with when I meet Muslims, it's the fact that I am an observant Jew that makes the biggest impact. And I'll give you, and actually being because we are both religious, my Muslim friends and I, that brings us together. Not that you have to free of religion, then no God, then everybody will get along. It doesn't happen. We know the Soviet Russia, right, and the Chinese, they are free of God, and we see the situation there. I have two stories if we have time.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Okay. So one was I developed some very good friends from Egypt, and every year we would meet in Dubai at the medical show, and we would go to a fish restaurant, Why did we go to the fish restaurant? Because they said, no vegetarian. Arab hospitality. You have meat, chicken, or fish. So at least I could find something I could eat in the fish restaurant, because I could pick out the fish and not get something bad, because we don't eat shellfish. So they stopped ordering shrimp so we could share all the food. All right. So they were willing to make a little change, and so we could sit together and eat together.
Mm.
And the funniest was that next to the restaurant is in Jumeirah, there's a big mosque, and they said, I think it was Maghrib, that I think they wanted to go and pray. So they said, I have to pray also. And then they were looking, and they said, they said, you have room? They thought you had to bow down. I said, no, we don't bow down. It's okay. And so they went to pray, and I prayed, and then we went and ate together and had a meal. But there was it's like, they were impressed. They liked the fact that I took that time to pray to God. And we have today countless, pictures from real life here in Israel now, where the Muslim worker and the Jewish worker are doing, Fajr. He's praying Fajr, and he's praying the morning prayer for the Jews. And I think that says something, because we both recognize that we're not the boss. That we both recognize that the people who are making the decision, the one who makes the decision, is above us. And we have to find out what's the best way to do the things that we're supposed to do.
Yeah.
And in the Jewish scripture, which is also holy to Muslims, it says one should love peace and to pursue it. Okay? So I can say, okay, I like peace, right? I'm okay, and that's fine. Not enough. You have to pursue it.
Yeah.
So as a result, even though other observant Jews may not eat in the places where I've eaten, I'm willing to go to friends' houses in Hebron, for example, or in Jerusalem, or places, and I'm not going to eat something not kosher. Kosher is the Jewish version of halal.
Yeah.
But if I come to your house and you give me vegetarian food, that's great. If you come to my house, I'll make sure there's no wine on the table, right? So, and I have to tell you that when my daughter was married, there were Christians and Muslims at the wedding. And other people who were not the most progressive thinking, they came in, they said, I'm sitting here with somebody from Jordan. I'm sitting here with an Arab Israeli Muslim woman from a village near Tel Aviv. And it had its effect. It had its effect, to the point where my Muslim friend from Amman, he's just, when's your next daughter getting married? I can't wait to come back.
That's right. That's wonderful. Thank you, Seth, for your time, and it was a nice session. And hope to see you next week with the new topic, and we will discuss about that topic next week. And that is for me, it is very touching topic to know about the valuable, historical, religiously valuable sites of Israel, other than the sites of Jerusalem. Because we all know that Jerusalem is a city which is very special for all the Abrahamic religions. But outside of Jerusalem, there is a lot to explore in Israel, and lot to know about Israel, and lot to see in Israel. So we are going to discuss that in next podcast next week.
Very good. Looking forward to
Thursday on same time. Thank you.
Inshallah.
Thank you for being with us.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.